it's Jermaine Johnson's team, and I don't want to botch it and have him yell at me. I know it's WWSB for short. I believe it's what wrestling should be.
Wrestling should be.
That's right. And you and your partner are going to team up and face them at the big show coming up in February. So tell us a little bit about that match.
Well, it is IZW's Violent Valentine. It is actually this Saturday, February 1st, in Lawton, Oklahoma, at the Impact Arena. But if you can't be there in person, all of their weekly shows and pay-per-views are available on GoFightLive.tv. There's my plug. But, man, I got to tell you, I'm super excited for this match. It is me and Luke Langley, my tag team partner, is our first title opportunity in IZW. And for it to be against a team like what wrestling should be, Jermaine Johnson and Jordan Jacobs, it's a big opportunity, and we're excited.
Yeah, and you should be, because there's a natural grudge built into this, in that you beat them out for Oklahoma Tag Team of the Year, so they may have the belts, but you have the title in a manner of speaking.
Oh yeah, and I gotta tell you, man, it was kind of a surprise. I mean, I'm fully confident in me and Luke's ability, but we've only been in IZW on like a semi-regular basis since August, so they've had a lot more exposure, a lot more tag titles. And they've had them for a lot longer than we have. So for us to beat them out for that title of the Oklahoma Tag Team of the Year, taking 26% of the vote total in that poll, it was a tremendous honor and an accomplishment. And I'm pretty sure that's why we're the number one contenders.
I think that might be a good reason why, too. But since you did mention that it's only been recently that you've been regular in IZW, tell us a little bit about how the team came together and how you came into IZW.
Oh, man, well, you got to trace that back to me and Luke's training, because that's how we met. We trained together up just south of Kansas City in a town called Bucyrus with a guy named the Good Reverend Chad Sullivan. And he kind of broke us in, and he knew a promoter named Space Cowboy Jason Jones down in Harrison, Arkansas. We got down there. We met a guy named Canadian Red Devil, who runs another Fed in Oklahoma. Once we got into the Tulsa area, we kind of branched out, worked for feds like Steel Rage Pro Wrestling. Right now, we're the United Wrestling Entertainment Tag Team Champions. And we kind of slowly moved our way south from the Tulsa area down to Mid-South Wrestling Alliance. And from there, IZW kind of picked us up and asked us what our dates were. And we've been there ever since August.
So basically, they just scouted you guys as talent. They saw all the other places you've been working in Oklahoma and said, we need to have these guys on our roster.
Yeah, apparently, because I knew a few guys who worked with them in the Tulsa area, guys like Bobby Starr and one of their color commentators, Chris Burnham. Chris Burnham and Bobby Starr, they're at a bunch of different shows, and they mentioned to me even like over a year ago, it was like, man, they're talking about maybe bringing you guys in there. They might need some tag teams and up around the Tulsa area, a lot of the IZW guys don't have the greatest reputation. Not in-ring work, but IZW guys like to speak the truth a lot, and that gets some feelings hurt. So we weren't exactly sure about it, but we were like, hey, we got to do it at least once to see, just to say we did it. And ever since we went, we just wanted to keep going back. We just learned a lot from guys. Got this guy backstage, Rob, who just teaches us everything, and even guys like Jermaine and Johnny Z. I mean, there's always something to learn down there, so we're loving it.
Well, I'm glad to hear it's been a good experience so far. And I wonder if you could talk to us a little bit about the fact that you've also worked as a singles wrestler, aside from being in the tag team. Obviously, you've had great success with Luke, but you have had a successful singles career as well.
Yeah, I mean, me and Luke, schedules outside of wrestling are pretty different. His work schedule is not as flexible as mine, so sometimes I take on little extra bookings when I can. The first of this month, I just made my first voyage into Tennessee, which was a pretty rewarding experience. I worked for Main Event Wrestling in Gallatin, which Rudy Boy Gonzalez books for. I was victorious there, and Rudy even asked to have me back, and we should be there February the 14th, which is one night before Luke and I both participate in the AIWF World Cruiserweight Title Tournament in Jasper, Tennessee. But I think my biggest accomplishment as a singles wrestler would be winning the SRPW United States Championship. That was it was a year ago in August. So, but I held that belt for about 6 months, and I had a pretty dominant reign, if I do say so myself, and it was a lot of fun.
Well, anybody that holds a title for more than a couple of months can call it a dominant reign because things change very quickly in wrestling these days. So 6 months,
Oh yeah,
nothing to sneeze at. It's not at all. But I want to let Sierra ask a couple of questions as well. I don't want to dominate the whole time. So Sierra, please feel
well,
free
that's cool. It's been a while since a girl's talked to me, so I'm up for that. No problem.
Hey now. But I'm not no any other girl. I talk wrestling. What made you decide to get in professional wrestling?
Oh man, like I just always wanted to do it. Like I can't remember. Like I've been a fan since I was about 5 years old. Because I remember for Christmas in '97, my mom got me and my brother. My brother's like 9 years older than me. Got us a PlayStation 1 for Christmas. Mm-hmm. And one of the games was WWS In Your House. And that game was like really over the top. Bats would fly out of Undertaker's glove when he'd punch people, and Doink where you could see people's skeletons when he shocked them with the joy buzzer. So I just had fun playing that. My brother one day he's like, "Hey, you want to watch it on TV?" I was like, "Yeah." And like I remember seeing like Vader's head in a plastic like wastebasket was the very first image I ever saw on Raw. That just stuck with me. But I remember we were like talking about it was like in kindergarten, and that day we talked about like what do you want to do when you grow up or something. I remember I didn't really have an answer at school. And that night I was watching Raw, and I remember Austin. I think he just won the belt like a few weeks earlier or something. I don't remember it. I remember he gave D'Lo Brown a stunner, and I remember watching like the background, just the entire audience just stood on their feet, and I was just like, "Hey, I could do this." So,
well, you mentioned Vader. Was he one of your favorite personalities growing up, or was it someone else that inspired you to, especially when it comes to your character?
Vader was kind of gone by the time I really got to watching it a lot, especially I had to go to bed like halfway through Raw. So I'd have to like sneak out of my bed and like peek down the hallway and watch the TV at the end. But my biggest influences, like there were like 5 that like off the top of my head I really dug, which was, if you count both the Hardys, huge for the Hardys, especially Jeff, but both of them just because they were just awesome. And, of course, you know, Stone Cold. Everyone who was a wrestling fan in the 90s was a Stone Cold fan. I was no exception. And DX, like, post Shawn Michaels. I didn't get to see a lot of Shawn when I was a kid, but X-Pac, Triple H, the Outlaws, they made me laugh. I'm probably, like, looking back now, didn't really understand a lot of the humor, but it made me laugh when they pointed at their crotches and showed their butts because I was 7. But one of my biggest, like, he's my favorite when I was 10, and he'll be my favorite forever, even though he probably shouldn't. Is Goldberg. And Goldberg was my favorite because he was a wrestler, and the object of wrestling is to win, and that's what Goldberg did. He won all the time. So Goldberg was my guy, and I think I cried when the streak ended.
I know you mentioned that you thought he was the man in one of your interviews. So being that he had this big, you know, run in WCW where he was just killing everybody, and then that streak just ended out of nowhere, which I was not ready for. What did you think of his run in WWE?
Now, honestly, I don't remember a lot of it because that was kind of a weird period for me. I think we didn't always have cable at that time, so there's a lot of spots like post-invasion angle that are kind of missing. But, like, at the time, I thought it was pretty good because, like, he was still, like, built really strong, and he got the belt at one point. But, I mean, looking back now, the general consensus is kind of meh, especially with how he left with that shitty match with Brock. So,
yeah.
But I'm glad he at least, like, got the belt. I mean, wrestling's fake. The belts don't necessarily mean anything, but it's a nice gesture. And Goldberg, he's my guy. Like, so.
Yeah, I was a huge fan of Goldberg. I even in the 5th grade had like, I'm embarrassed to say this, we had like Valentine's Day parties, and we had to like give cards out, and I did WCW cards, Scott Steiner and Goldberg. Yeah,
I did the same thing. And I saved the Goldberg one for the chick that I had a crush on. I made sure she got it. Because that's how she's going to know that I liked her more than anyone else, because I gave her the Goldberg Valentine.
Yeah, like, it was Goldberg, Scott Steiner, Kevin Nash, and I believe Sting. And the other one was, like, somebody random. It was, like, Norman Smiley, I swear. And for the people I didn't like, got Norman Smiley. Everybody else got the good cards.
If you didn't like them, they got the big wiggle.
Yeah, they got the cards I didn't want.
Good shit. Norman Smiley. Fuck you, you get Norman Smiley.
You also mentioned in your interview that you have attended seminars with Bobby Eaton, Harley Race, Colt Cabana, and so many more. And you took something different from each person. What are some of the things that you grasped from each of one of these competitors and continue to apply it to your work these days?
Oh man, that's a list, because this has been like the year of seminars for the KC Wolves. Like I can just off the top of my head, like Bobby Eaton, I remember just like, even though he's like a tag team specialist, like one of the things that really stuck with me from his seminars is just like how much in control a heel should be of a match, even if he tends to be the less experienced one. So I remember someone like straight up asked Bobby, like, cause he's like, the heel should always call the match if they can. The guy's like, what if the heel's less experienced? They should still call it if they can, just so they get used to that. And I take that to heart because a lot of times I'm the less experienced guy, even if I'm a heel. So I have to be, ready to take control of a match if I need to, even if I'm in there with someone who's a little more experienced than I am.
Mm-hmm.
And, man, there were just, at the Harley Race Camp this year, man, there were just so many. I couldn't even begin to, like, nail down one thing, because the first day Tom Pritchard talked to us for like 4 hours. The last day, Ricky Steamboat talked to us for like 4 hours. And then, like, I want to say Tuesday through Friday, the representatives from NOAA were there. Mm-hmm. And it's just like picking up little things. Like before I went to that Harley Race Camp, I couldn't do a European uppercut to save my life. And then the president of NOAA, Brew, people were doing drills in the ring, and they wanted everyone to stay busy and not just watch. So me and Luke were practicing European uppercuts, and he comes up and he says some stuff I can't understand, and his assistant, this guy Ken, comes up, and he like explains it to us, and now I've got one of the best European uppercuts in Oklahoma. So I mean, just little things like that. Like I never expected to like get boss at European uppercuts from a small Japanese man, but that's wrestling.
Say, as long as Noah's on the subject, I got to ask you real quick. Have you heard the rumors that Kenta is possibly joining WWE?
Man, I have heard a little bit about that, man. Like, man, I half hope it's true and I half don't. Because, I mean, he could fuck that up real easy. Kenta doesn't necessarily, like, Kenta's not swearing out his ass or anything, but he doesn't necessarily have one of those super family-friendly, or what I can say, like, WWE-friendly styles. Necessarily. I mean, he's a hard kicking motherfucker. I mean, he just looks like a mean son of a bitch. But I mean, it would definitely be interesting to see Kenna in WWE, especially like I'm sure they'd do something awesome with him and Daniel Bryan at some point, and just to see how he like works with some of these more like, because he's worked a lot of American guys in Ring of Honor and stuff, but those are indie guys, Ring of Honor guys. It'd be interesting really to see how he matched up with WWE guys who were kind of like bred in that developmental, system and are accustomed to that style. So,
right, but, like Kenta versus Bray Wyatt. That to me would be a dream match right there.
Oh, that'd be something to see. Like Kenta, Harper, and even just like Kenta Cena. Like it'd be something to see.
Oh my God, the kicks. Oh.
I personally hope he would kick the living hell out of him, but go ahead.
Oh, Cena would sell the piss out of those kicks, though.
Yes, he would. That would be a fun match to watch. But I got another question for you. Since we've talked about guys that are coming in from like Ring of Honor and Pro Wrestling Noah and stuff, and how they've become part of WWE, I think it's interesting right now that the American Wolves had a chance to go into WWE and didn't get signed and got picked up by TNA instead. And you're the KC Wolves, so obviously there's a little bit of similarity given you're both tag teams. But what are your thoughts on the American Wolves?
I'm going to tell you right now, that pissed me off so much because I see Derek Philbin and whatever the other one's stupid WWE name was, the American Pit Bulls, and I tell Luke, I'm like, all right, it's official. We can keep it. We don't have to change it. Because we did our 2-day Ring of Honor camp this year, and we were thinking, like, all right, they're probably going to say something about our names. Let's think of alternate tag names. We couldn't think of anything for the life of us. So I was like, awesome. They're in WWE. They're changing their name. We're keeping the Wolves. And when we see them on TNA, I'm just like, well, fuck.
But you know what? That just means if you ever do like a TNA dark match or something, you can be the Wolves versus the Wolves for the rights to the name.
Oh, there you go. That's something. I mean, Luke likes to tell people that, like, we didn't do it because of, like, the American Wolves, which for the most part is true, but it's kind of a nod to the American Wolves, because when we came up with it, we were on a pretty big kind of, like, we were really high on the Wolves, and we're still, like, fans of them, you know, so. And we got a lot of, like, there's several similarities. Like, we're not the biggest guys, either me or Luke, but so.
Oh yeah, it's not a bad thing to aspire to be like the Wolves, because they've had some of the greatest tag team matches I've ever seen. So you could do worse than trying to emulate their style.
Oh yeah, definitely. So.
All right.
No,
well,
we're happy keeping the name as long as we can.
Yeah, I certainly hope there's no trademark lawsuit or anything like that. But I think that the different organizations and the differentiation with the KC and the American will help out with that. I don't think it'll be too much of an issue.
Thanks. I mean, when we chose KC Wolves, we had to choose this when we went to Oklahoma, because we used to have a different gimmick where I was this Martian dude and he was just Luke Langley, and it was like that was our thing. But this promoter was like, no, I want something more legit. And keep in mind, this is coming from a promoter who's tag team champions at one time were Reptile and Amphibian, the Swamp Men. But he's like, well, play out something where, like, you know, you're from the Midwest, even if it's just like the Kansas Express or something simple like that.
Oh, wow.
One good thing is like, all right, we like Kansas City. What if we trained up around Kansas City? He's like, you know, the Chiefs mascot is KC Wolf. He's like, all right, KC Wolf. We like the American Wolves. We'll be the KC Wolves. And we did not expect to spend half as much time in Oklahoma as we did. I'm glad we did, but, like, that's kind of how the KC Wolves thing stuck. Like, we didn't expect it at all, but I think it worked out for the best.
Now, do people in Oklahoma ever heel on you for that? They're like, you're in Oklahoma, you're wrestling in Oklahoma. Why are you repping Kansas and Kansas City?
No, really, like, they don't. And I think it's because, like, you know, they're, like, from Kansas City, Missouri, you know, it's like, all right, they're from Kansas City. They're working the Oklahoma Indies, because we got people billed from all over down there. You know, I think Swamp Men are from Louisiana somewhere, so we can be from Kansas City.
That's cool, yeah. But I know it's a sports rivalry in some cases. You know, like Nebraska and Oklahoma. I'm in Nebraska, so sometimes, you know, you get a little heat if you're from Oklahoma around here. They give you a little shit for that.
Man, it's kind of funny because Luke Langley, he's a K-State alumni. And so on his wrist tape, he'll write "Every Man a Wildcat," EMAW. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, is it kind of weird you're writing "Every Man a Wildcat" when we're going out there to wrestle as the KC Wolves?
Yeah, it doesn't necessarily jive. It does make sense, but what can you do? It's
exactly. I don't have a problem with it at all. I just kind of, you gotta find a little things to laugh at, especially at your tag partner. Considering he's the one laughing at me most of the time, so I laugh at him whenever I can.
Well, that's good then. That shows you guys have perfect chemistry. If you can laugh together and wrestle together and work together, that's what makes you a great tag team.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Like, it says there in my interview that Sierra there likes to quote so much. Like, we're
hey,
you're doing your research. Good job. You know, so, but,
okay.
I mean, we're very similar but very different at the same time. Like I said, like, if it weren't for wrestling, like, if we met just, like, out in the world, we probably wouldn't have become friends. But now we're extremely close friends. Because, like, wrestling's that just kind of initial thing that bonded us, and we got, like, semi-similar tastes in, like, music, and, like, we both kind of like comics. So he likes Preacher and stuff, and I'm more into, like, the traditional, like, Spider-Man and stuff. And it's just those things, you know, there's the differences and similarities. It's a good yin-yang.
Absolutely. I kind of feel it's the same way with Sierra and I is, you know, we both like wrestling, but she likes the women's wrestling a little more, and I follow, you know, the WWE a little more, and
you
together,
like good wrestling.
Well, we both like good wrestling. I think we could safely say that about each other. That's where we have the differences and the similarities.
Mm-hmm.
So I do want to give Sierra a chance again because I kind of hijacked it for a few minutes there. So Sierra, back to you before we wrap it up.
Okay. You also said that as a kid in a small town, something about Jeff Hardy being different resonated with you. Seeing all his success in WWE and TNA, does that inspire you to one day pursue similar success as both singles and tag team as a superstar?
Oh, I mean, definitely, like, yeah, the little kid, like, in that town, this little, like, southwest Missouri community of, like, 1800, where everyone was, like, either, like, some redneck or they were the, like, polar opposite, some little hippie, emo, half-goth fuck. Like, being, like, liking Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! And Power Rangers well into my high school years, I caught a lot of crap for it. And, like, it bothered me for, like, a while, because I used to have, like, a temper when I was little. But, like, got to the point where I was just like, man, I can make fun of them for so much more. And, like, Jeff Hardy kind of, like, just relating to him kind of, like, just made me able to shrug it off. Because, like, here's this weirdo going out with, like, pantyhose cut up on his arm and makeup, and his hair's all different colors, and I'm digging it. The crowd's digging it. He doesn't care about people who aren't digging it. So, like, I can do that. I'll wear my Power Ranger shirt well into my 20s like I'm doing right now. Alpha 5, represent. And I'm not going to give a shit what anyone says. Because more often than not, I get compliments on it. Because it's different. Because it makes me stand out. And it's what I enjoy. And I'm not ashamed of it. But more back to the question of the success, like, he definitely did inspire me. Like, it kind of sounds a little cheesy, but I definitely look to Jeff as a role model. Despite all of his personal crap, Jeff was different from the norm. He wasn't a big guy. He wasn't a power guy. He was a risk taker, and he was a weirdo, and it got him over. And I, like, popped hard when he won his first WWE title. Like, I was ecstatic because it was about time. And it makes me feel that a guy like me can definitely attain that, like, level of success.
I think with Jeff Hardy, because I hear a lot of guys, especially guys that are really into high flying and things in the ring, you know, the first guy they'd be like, Jeff Hardy. And I'm like, Jesus. Like, Jeff Hardy inspired a lot of people. And I mean, despite his personal issues, I mean, everybody has personal issues, but he inspired a lot of guys, especially this generation of wrestlers. Like, you can count on everybody's hand of how many people inspired by him. It's amazing.
Well, he was a pioneer. I mean, you know, Shawn and Brett had done the ladder matches before, and Shawn and Razor had done the ladder match, but, like, when it came to them, I mean, like, Jeff Hardy, like, I'll be honest, like, he's one of my idols, but he got a lot of rub off guys like Edge and Christian, who probably held those structured those ladder matches probably a little better than just Jeff and Matt could have. And, like, a lot of it, like, Matt never gets the credit he deserves, especially at this point in his career. But Matt is a phenomenal worker. And, like, let's see, I'm trying to get my words here. It's just, Jeff, I think his personality is kind of like what gave that feud with them and the Dudleys and Edge and Christian. I think that's what gave that feud its identity. But he didn't give it all of its substance. Edge and Christian lent a lot to that. But he was the one kind of put up on the monarchy. Like, if you want to kind of equate it to that 1 hour match that Shawn and John Cena had, that was mostly Shawn. But it was Shawn Michaels versus John Cena. And, like, John so, like, gets credit, like, hey, that was an incredible 1 hour match you had on Raw with Shawn. When it was probably mostly just Shawn Michaels. But
yeah, I think we saw that a lot with Jeff. I agree with you because whenever Jeff and Matt had a tag team match, Matt might be doing the workload, but Jeff would be out there doing the big spots and doing the crazy flips and jumping off things. And it took me a while to warm up to Jeff for that. I used to think that, man, Matt was out there working hard and Jeff was getting all the glory. But then once Jeff got on his own and started having great matches with people, then it was like he was giving that to other people what had been given to him.
Oh, yeah, Jeff was having, like, just phenomenal single match. When he started getting his Uber push after, like, it was Survivor Series when him and Triple H were the last two. Like, even when he came back, like, even before that, but, like, that's when he started having just awesome matches, like, against Umaga. Like, that's an awesome rivalry, him and Umaga. And it was never, like, an actual, like, big rivalry. it like was kind of like a spotty rivalry, but it spread out over like a year or more. But they had great matches. I want to say Jeff and MVP had a really good match at one point. Him and Morrison had an awesome like series of matches for the IC belt. I'll tell you right now, to this day, my favorite match of all time is Jeff Hardy versus The Undertaker in a ladder match for the WWE Championship.
The one they had on Raw, that match was amazing.
The week I thought Undertaker was going to kill Jeff Hardy.
Yeah, that's the epitome of what Jeff Hardy was. He was this young, scrappy, weird kid going out trying to prove himself against probably at the time the most established and badass guy in the locker room. And it was Jeff's environment, and he did it. And all Jeff did was get his ass kicked in that match. Like, he had his little shine at the beginning where he was on the motorcycle. All Jeff did was climb that ladder and get knocked down. Undertaker punched him, climbed the ladder. No, I need to beat Jeff Hardy's ass some more. I'll get down off the ladder. Went down, beat Jeff Hardy's ass some more. And Jeff just grabbing onto the ropes, his body like ragdolling, and he's trying to get up. And it's like, even after he loses, he's just like, Taker, I'm not done with you. And that was just the epitome of like what Jeff Hardy was. It doesn't matter who beat him down or how hard they did, he was always going to get back up. And like that's the epitome of what a face is in wrestling.
Yeah,
like, always in peril, always the underdog, but never ever quitting for any reason.
And you could almost feel like that was a passing the torch moment too, because Undertaker gave him that look and shook his hand, and it was like, I've been the badass, and now you're a badass too.
Oh yeah, I mean that's kind of like that stamp of approval, you know, like you said, a passing of the torch. So it was a great thing. Like, every time I watch that match now, I was like, there's still a little part of me that thinks maybe Jeff's going to get it this time. Because it's just got that connection with me.
Yeah, you want to suspend disbelief and think maybe it'll be different this time. But that's one of those matches you just have to play in a video game and try to get the outcome to come different. You know, like put it into WWE 2K14 and have them wrestle again, see what happens.
Exactly, but no, I loved it, and like that was kind of like I said, a perfect example like of what a Jeff Hardy match was. He'd take all these risks and get beat down, and he was some different weirdos everyone said would never succeed on his own, but he did. Nothing kept him down, and Jeff was him and Goldberg. Like, those are my two guys.
Well, I think that's kind of a way to summarize you, because those are two completely different stylistic guys when it comes to the way they move. Yeah, but if you could take something from each one of them and make it your own, that's what makes you a great, unique pro wrestler. So hats off to you on that.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. I try to do my best. Like, even as like before I got into wrestling, I was like, when it's coming to like a move or a pose or just something in it, like I have to do something different, because different is how you get noticed. That's why I got Jeff noticed, because he was different than absolutely everything else. And so I always try to just be different, and then I'll polish it from there if I like it, you know.
Well, I think people have got a lot of reason to check you out now if they weren't already doing so like we were through IZW and GoFightLive.tv. They know now that you're a different breed of cat, and that people should be checking for you and your partner Luke Langley and watching the Violent Valentine. So let's get that plug out one more time for everybody to come to Lawton, and if they can't, how they can watch it.
All right, this Saturday, February 1st, Violent Valentine in Lawton, Oklahoma. If you can't be there yourself, GFL.TV. I don't know how much it is, but it's on there, and it's worth your money. So,
absolutely. And, of course, people can keep up with you on social media as well, Facebook and whatnot. Let's get those up as well, those plugs too.
Of course. See my Facebook. You'll find it, Graham Bell. It's a regular page. I also have a like page. We've got a KC Wolves page. And you can follow me at Graham Bell, WPE, on Twitter. And I have one more plug, because I promised my good friend Tim Rockwell I would.
Sure.
It is WFCcharity.com. WFC is Wrestling for a Cause, and it is one of the greatest organizations, probably the I've ever worked for, because it is a fed that runs around the Tulsa area, and every single one of their shows, all the proceeds go to families who have had issues with childhood cancer. Every single one of the shows is a fight for a different child. He tries to run the shows in that kid's hometown, and all the money goes towards medical bills, sometimes funeral expenses, whatever the family needs. But it's a fantastic organization that I think everyone should support. And one more time, that website is WFCcharity.com.
All right, WFCcharity.com, Wrestling for a Cause. Be sure to make sure everybody checks that out. I'll check that out after the show is over. And Graham, thank you so much for being here with us tonight. It's been a fun interview.
Oh, definitely, guys. I appreciate it. It's my first podcast radio interview, and I had a lot of fun.
Yeah, well, we'll have you back again. It won't be your last.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it, brother. You guys take care.
All right, thanks, Graham. You too. And have a good match this weekend. I'm sure you will.
I'm going to walk away with some belts, Bubba.
All right. Well, I hope so. Take care.
All right. You too.